The Dodgers break the Yankees' hearts and win the World Series after they break the Mets' hearts. It's the 2024 season recap and the look ahead show. Diamond Diehards is back. Welcome back. Diamond Diehards is on. Along with the dog, Jeff Healy. It's Joe Rizzo. Yeah, we took a little break. There's just no there's,
Little highest.
there's no way around that one. But we are back.
We totally reworked the show,
Yeah. Uh we
but
said we
but
were
that may
gonna
mean we
redo the
don't know
show.
how it works anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently we don't. Um so we totally reworked the show. No, we took a little break. The dog and I are back. You can follow the show uh and the dog and I at Jeff Healy 8 on X, formerly Twitter, and at Diamond Diehards for me, Joe Rizzo, and streaming. So I guess, dog, we are changing it up because we are
Yeah,
streaming on YouTube this time instead of Facebook. So there's that.
there you go. Give us the clicks or
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't know if we're boy
Whatever
if
we
we're
got.
going boy if we're going for clicks. We challenge our audience to do that.
And there we go.
Oh man. You know what? You don't get this authenticity in most places, but you're gonna get a lot of it tonight. You just sit right back, audience.
Yeah. Well, and I just completely kicked my mic out. So hopefully we're back on. And that's live. That's
Big
totally live.
save and a beauty.
Dog's like, maybe we should just record since we haven't done this in a while. Like, nah, I think we have to go live
I'll go
somewhere.
live.
Be like,
We'll do it live.
yeah. Wow. And then he slams the
Roll
door.
back.
And he slams the door in his face and goes to hell. Um, so what more is there to say about the Yankee season, the Mets season, and the way that the Dodgers won the World Series? There's a lot to say about it, and we're going to say it. If you haven't been with us for a while, the Facebook group is really a great place to where you can interact with not only the dog and I, but also our great core of followers and fans, including our number one fan, Uncle Paul, who we're thinking about you, Uncle Paul. Not feeling so hot, a little under the weather, so throw a couple of prayers up there for Uncle Paul, so he gets back and can start participating with us again. I know he was pretty excited with the way the Mets were rolling, and probably was rooting for the Yankees there against the Dodgers. Usually he's Mets and then Yankees and just whoever's playing the Phillies. That's Uncle Paul where he goes. Um, Dog, like, how do you even start when you're talking about what happened to the Yankees? Like, like, do you say in this series? Do you say in the game? Like, the whole thing was just, it was like the fifth inning was just a microcosm of what happened in the series, but like to the nth degree. Like, you have the fundamentals breaking down, but you're like arguably your two most fundamentally sound guys, Aaron Judge and Anthony Volpe, at least on defense, just make like these god awful plays. Like the Judge play is unconscionable. Like I have never seen him do anything even close to that. And it's not like he like nonchalanted the ball. He just effed it up. Like I don't even know. Then Volpe on the ground ball, instead of taking the sure out, like you're up 5-0 in the fifth inning. If it's 0-0 or you're down 2-0, if it's the third inning and there's no score, whatever it is, like, okay, try to get the lead runner. There's no reason at all to get the lead runner. Like you don't have to get him. Turn and he would have had time to get the guy at first Second base might have been a little dicey if he was trying it, but you had to figure that he would have at least been able to get a guy at first base, right? So he opts not to do that. And then like Garrett Cole is so locked in and he fights all the way back and he's about to get out of it. And Mookie Betts hits the most routine ground ball you've ever seen in your life. Yeah, sure, whatever. It's got spin on it. Cole's running to cover first and he just stops and he points to Rizzo to pick it up. Now, there's criticisms about Rizzo. Everybody knows I'm like, I'm always going to defend my cousin. But anybody who thinks like that was not Cole's play, they don't know
They
what
don't
they're
know the
talking.
position.
No,
Yeah.
they don't know what they're talking about, and that's it. And that's fine. Like Doug Mankiewicz, who was a first baseman who couldn't hit, like who stayed in the league for like 14 years because of his glove at a position where like you don't really have a defensive guy. Like that's how good Doug Mankiewicz was. Even Doug Mankiewicz, he's like, what are these people talking about? Like it's
Greg,
it's
Greg Olson came in. He had a good comment on it too about it as well. And the crazy thing is, like, if you look like another angle, sort of the behind home plate angle, or kind of just off to the side, you can kind of see the whole play come out. Like Cole's not even like taking a line to first. Like he was never going to first. Like he was kind of running almost towards the dugout. Like if he didn't realize, like, oh geez, I got to cover, he had no shot. Like he had to go basically straight to first in order to try and beat Mookie. What you're supposed to do is go like, a foot or two ahead, turn and get the ball and step on first. That's sort of like the textbook one. The pros who would do it, like there's a really fast guy. It's like you pretty much have to run to the base and you have to kind of take the risk of it. Cole was like, he was bisecting the angle. He was just kind of going out like he was in no, once he took like 3 steps, he had no shot at that play. I mean, he basically did, he just had a mental error. And just like you were saying with Volpe, that's the other one. Like it's the mental errors. I mean, that's the ones that just kill managers and fans, right? It's like, the physical error, like you have one more Judge. I mean, he literally, he just took the eye off the ball. He was maybe checking a runner or just something just happens, right? That's a physical error that occasionally will happen. The guy was not goofing off. It just, is why guys aren't 100% catching anything. The Volpe one, like saying, trying to make an aggressive play, hard one, no reason to make it, right? He needs to know ahead of time before the ball's hit. Like, man, you started T-ball, right? Before the ball's hit, what am I going to do when the ball's hit to me, right? And that's just the nature of baseball the whole way through on that. And Cole, I mean, once you clear sort of 7th, 8th grade, I'm a pitcher. I throw the ball goes to my left over to the infield's right. I immediately break for first until I realize I don't need to, and cut out. And he just, a guy who's done that a bajillion times, just had a brain cramp. It happens to the best of them. It probably happens more to the best, frankly, right? They don't get as many ground balls, am I right? They're used to more strikeouts. But you just had the confluence of that, and you had a team that, you can't give 5 outs to the Dodgers on that. And they got this close to getting through it. And I was kind of rooting for the Yanks in it after the Mets got knocked out. And it's just heartbreaking because you saw the Yankees are finally waking up. I mean, after game 3 or game 4 got it going. Game 5, you really got Judge in there. So like game 4, Judge is starting to get go. Game 5 starts off with the homer. He's got the single and then follows with the double later on. I'm like, he's really clicking with it, and you could just see that everything's starting to fall into place. And maybe Stanton's finally taking a breath, but the other guys are stepping up. And the Yankee team you saw all year, at least the Yankee offense you saw all year, was ready to take that next step. And they just ran out of time.
Yeah, I mean they blew their time, like
Yeah.
they absolutely had it. Like if they just get through that inning, they even get through the inning tied, which is kind of amazing
Yeah.
that they didn't just completely blow it all the way.
Yeah.
But Cole comes out, he pitches another couple of innings.
Were you surprised by that?
No, I looked at the pitch count and I knew, especially with it being the last game of the season, I think that it made sense. I
Yeah.
think there was a world where if they had kept the 5-0 lead and then they were tacking on, that they might have pulled him out slightly early, in the hope that, like, that the only way you can win the series is to win it in seven. Like, you already know that it's not, there's no scenario where, like, hey, maybe we could win in six. Like, it's got to be seven. So if you held his pitch count down a little bit, you have a chance where maybe he could give you an inning or two, whatever, in a game seven type scenario. So I thought that was a possibility. But once it got to 5-5, it was like, just let him go as long as he can, because now you're in position where, like, you just have to win this game.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, he
Pretty
pitched.
good mental toughness, I will say, to go out and get it, especially the next day. Like once you get the next game, then I totally got like just let him keep running as long as he could. But like having the mental toughness to go out after blowing it like that, and and wearing it on that error too. I mean, that makes it even harder on it, right? He's killing himself on it. And to be able to shake it off, I mean, I was impressed. So he came out and was able to kind of get through it on that. I will say I was yay close to actually texting you that exact line of like, do you take him out and save him a little bit because you're up 5-0? And for once I had the sense like, let's just let this play out. And yeah, so the dog didn't jinx you, but I was thinking it.
Listen, we all had the Yankees and the Dodgers on a plane back to the West Coast.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, how could you not? Like,
Yeah.
that was what
Dave
was
Roberts
happening.
actually had him there. I was right, and then they brought in Trinan and stuff, but yeah, even like sort of fourth, fifth inning, like it sort of seemed to be kind of saying like, all right, kind of like Roberts was doing against the Mets and stuff. Like if it's not our day, then I save my guys and we roll it forward. And and they had just shot their bolt with Flaherty too, right? So, I mean, you have Yamamoto in the next game, and he had a great game against the Yanks. We'll see. Could he do it again a second time in a row? We'll see. But the whole the whole Dodger bullpen, whatever. I certainly wouldn't have feared that as a Yankee going into game seven. So, but we didn't get that chance.
Did not. Denied.
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 Won the pennant. Good year.
No,
Very good.
not when it ends that way. It spoils the year. It does. It
Felt a
does.
little 2015. I mean, I will say it was different. I mean, going back to my Mets season against the Royals, um, it irritated me because I felt the Mets were a better team. In hindsight and looking through, I'm not sure that's really true. Versus they were just a hotter team, kind of rolling in with the Royals back then. Um, I think Yanks Dodgers. I don't know. Right? It sort of feels like it sort of depends on which team comes up, and we're kind of chit-chatting, right? It's like the Dodgers like the behemoth, but what else when the Mets are facing the Dodgers? Like I didn't feel like they didn't belong on the field, like that the Mets didn't belong on the field with them. Despite the fact there, the depth of whatever of the Dodgers, that it didn't feel overwhelming. I'm like, there's a path, as Carl Banks always says, there's a path to victory. I'm like, there was a path to victory for the Metsies. They weren't able to pull it off, and there was certainly a path for the Yankees to kind of pull it off, and they just put themselves in too much of a hole, and they just couldn't get everything to line up again. But am I going to say who was necessarily a better team? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, the part about getting it to line up again is the frustrating part.
Yeah,
Because
stealing game one would have made a huge, huge difference, and we sort of talked at the time, and then not being able to get game two, that hurt because the Yanks they had a good path in game one. They could have snuck it, and it's like, all right, it's not a big deal. All you got to do is win one out there, and then then you lost that game two, and then they made that big.
I said, as soon as Freddie Freeman hit the grand slam, I said I've been watching baseball for a long time, and when you have a loss like that, I know it's early in the series, like, it makes it so hard. It's like just when that happens to you, you don't come back and win the series,
Yeah,
and you need something like earth shattering for you to do it. And the thing is, this close to like doing the one thing that you had to do. For the Red Sox, it was you have to beat Mariano Rivera in the ninth inning to like turn like otherwise you're never like that's got to be the thing in
Yeah.
2004. That was what turned it around when they figured out a way to beat Mariano because that's what the Yankees were unbeatable-ish, but if you got to the point where, it was Mariano to close it out, that was like the one thing that nobody else had that was so consistently good. Like there were other great teams in that era. Like if Mariano Rivera's on the Braves, like how many titles did they win?
Ugh,
Like think about it.
a
Like
lot.
no, I've actually never heard anybody say that. But like, or like that was never a thing. But like, if Mariano Rivera was on the Braves, like the Braves probably have the same title run that like the
Behind
Yankees.
that rotation.
Oh yeah,
Like, would anybody else pitch? they'd, they'd
and
have like six. They'd have like six guys throwing.
yeah,
Four guys working like an inning back then.
and they had some decent relievers in those times too.
Yeah.
Like, and those guys just wouldn't have had to be the closer. They could have just played roles.
Yeah.
So that was like the one thing that the Yankees had that the others didn't. And okay, the first version of closer Mariano gets beaten by Sandy Alomar, right? And then, Mariano becomes Mariano and, more people have walked on the moon allegedly. Now you got to question that too. It's an election year, dog. Everything's a conspiracy theory.
We're trying to broaden the audience here.
Yeah, we're a week away from a U.S. presidential election. It's Halloween. I didn't even say that. Happy Halloween. My
I was going to ask, I'm like, can we like timestamp this or not here?
Yeah, happy Halloween. Happy Halloween to everybody but the Dodgers.
Halloween surprise.
So then Mariano, like the other time was against Luis Gonzalez, and then the other time was against the Red Sox, and that wasn't as much publicized sort of as the others, but that was kind of the big because it didn't happen in the last game or the clinching game or the walk-off type situation. But it was a big thing. It was like that's the kind of thing that had to happen for it to turn around. And the Yankees, like you're watching it and you're thinking the same thing. You're like, the guy who messed up the Yankees and started this whole thing for the Red Sox is the manager of the other team. And I have this karma theory. I don't know if it's karma or it's like the metaverse or I don't know, any of those big words, whatever. But it's like when you see these crazy things happen in sports, like one team does it, and then like a few years later, it's like a lot of times you see the same thing happen to like the other team. And you're like, wow, that's crazy. Like they did it. And it's like, I feel like once they get it in their heads that it could happen, they get it in their heads that it could happen to them. And that allows it to like, so I was thinking that with Dave Roberts. I'm like, this is like the Yankee karma. Like the guy who was like the one who started it for the Red Sox is going to be watching this while the Yankees like do it to him. And then they have this absurd inning that you can't even describe. Like it's fine. Like if Glaber, on a double play grounder threw the ball past Volpe and it went all the way to the tarp on the left side of the field. Like that's one thing. If Soto flubbed the fly ball in right, that's one thing. If like those guys, like the guys that you kind of like expect to just have these brain farts or whatever, but when it's like Judge, Volpe, and Cole, it's just crazy. Like I think the Dodgers needed that crazy thing to happen in order to avoid finding themselves in a seventh game scenario. But whatever. I don't know, Dog. We could talk about it all night. Maybe we ought to just put it to bed and start talking about the future of the New York teams, starting with the Mets.
Do we get to do a little Met retrospect? So what?
Yeah. So I'm saying like,
Okay,
let's take on the Mets now from what they did, and then look ahead.
oh yeah, I mean, I was so sort of kidding around and we were getting a little bit. It's like, the Yankees won a pennant and the Yankee fans feel terrible. Like the Mets lost a round before and we had a fantastic year. So, and we're nothing but sunshine on it. It really comes down to, the expectations. And there weren't a ton of expectations with the Mets. You hoped to be okay coming off the down year last year and selling everything. You didn't have a lot of hope earlier on. And they just got on a crazy heater. And they were the hottest team in baseball for the last 100 games of the season. And we can go through all the different all the different gimmicks we had and everything else like that. But the biggest thing and why you've got to feel great as a Met fan going forward is you can really see David Stern can really cook. I mean, coming into this was sort of like a freebie year for him. Right? It's like, you're coming in, you're kind of resetting everything. You're trying to build up the farm system and you did the trades last year. We're going to kind of grow it up, and then we'll really be able to kind of step forward. And as we kid around in back when we were in our strat days, right? I mean, they just kept pulling guys out of the pile who were like fantastic. They get Minaya out there, they get Iglesias out there. Quintana didn't want to pit. That was from the year before. Came back. It was finally good for him. Senga going down. You think the Mets are done, right? I mean, they don't have a ton of depth in the rotation. He goes down. You're like, that's it. I mean, they're going to be toast. They just found a way to kind of stitch it through. Got some great results. Vientos wasn't even on the roster at the end of the year. He was, he'd done well, but decided to go Beatty instead. Didn't quite work out. Vientos was raking down in Syracuse. And if the Mets get off to a good start and are kind of competitive the whole time, I don't know if he would even come up until September. Like, it might have just been Beatty and just kind of running it through. Instead, they were like, let's give it a shot. The team was kind of down. Let's try different things. And he came up, and again, they got him on a heater. And he came up and was tremendous for him. So if you're the Mets, I mean, you feel good. I mean, a ton of payrolls coming off from when they plussed up a couple years ago with Verlander and Scherzer and so forth. That's starting to kind of roll off now. And so you'll get more payroll flexibility, and it's going to be a fascinating offseason. There's basically the whole rotation has walked out the door again. So you got to pick out who you're going to bring back. There's a lot of good pitchers out there too, and you have money to spend on it. I expect that they would. Kind of brings us back to what we were talking before. Do you go with the more experienced pitchers to add those on shorter deals and kind of keep it kind of rotating? That's what they kind of did this year. We'll see if that kind of continues with that. And then try and keep the younger position players in place longer. So that's I said I think the base is really being built solidly for the Mets. I think you feel great about who they have out there. We have a true leader on the field in Lindor. I expect him to get to see and wear that on opening day. It's just clicking. And now they have to refortify what they have. A lot of stuff rolled off. They got to bring some new stuff in, and you're counting on the GM, who did a great job this past year, to go out and continue to execute. And we will see. We're sitting and we're eyeing up that ribeye. we're in the steak section. No more fruits and veggies.
Did you I sent you that article Vientos wrote on the Players Tribune?
I read part of it. Yeah, I read snippets. I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing. I was actually buried all day today, but I heard a couple people referencing it. It was pretty awesome. I saw some clips from it, and the clips I saw were pretty awesome. So
Yeah, it was impressive. I encourage anybody who's interested in the Mets to check that out. The Players Tribune, Mark Vientos. If you Google it, you'll find it. He was a big part of what they did, and he's ought to be a big part of their future. He was one guy that the Dodgers had a heck of a lot of trouble with, and so did everybody before that, including the Phillies. But it's like I look at the landscape a little bit, and maybe now we can start, you know, looking ahead. you have some flexibility there. Like, so Vientos in these games, if you were watching them, the one thing that you might have noticed is at the end of the games when they were winning, he was getting pulled for defense. Luis Angel Acuna would come in for him and play second, and then Jose Iglesias would move over and play third for their to improve their defensive alignment. And if Vientos, like, if he's going to be a cornerstone player like that, he's like, I think he's like an okay defensive player at third, but he's going to have to improve that
Yeah.
because he can't be a guy that, like, really in any situation that you can even think about taking out of a game like that. Like even the Yankees, you look like they don't take out a Gold Glove finalist Juan Soto. Where did that come from? Come on, guys. Seriously, Gold Glove finalist? Like maybe for the first month of the season, if you didn't watch after that. But he certainly
We
is
want to talk about
dedicated.
Gold Glove with the whole Lindor thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, right. And he does. And Lindor's not even a finalist, and he's like the best defensive shortstop in the league. But um, what you have is you got a cornerstone player, at least a cornerstone bat. Let's call him a cornerstone bat
Yeah.
in Vientos. He's good enough that he doesn't have to be a DH for the foreseeable future, which is good. However, there is there's a he's an extra important player for them this offseason, and to me, here's why. Because Pete Alonso is a free agent, and if they decide to move on from him, which look, you look at David Stearns and you can't dismiss it as a possibility. Like it's not necessarily a money thing. It could be a year's thing with the money being a factor. Why if he doesn't want to sign him, I think it's a real possibility because of Stearns. If you look at his history, you have to just understand that they're going to take a really hard look and they'll separate themselves from some of the emotional parts of it, like where Pete does nothing and then he hits like one of the biggest home runs in the history of the franchise,
Yeah.
which few guys are capable of doing the way he is. And then you're talking about, shaking a stick at home runs in an era where the home runs are starting to go down a little bit. So the thing is, they actually have some flexibility in my mind because they could either stick with Beatty and let him get another shot at third. And you're like, Riz, what the hell are you talking about? You already have Vientos there. Well, you move Vientos over to first base where he would be a plus defender rather than at third base where he's probably average or,
Minus, yeah.
or a slight minus. Like he's not
Yeah.
a butcher.
It's
He's
not
not a
bad. It's
butcher.
not brutal,
He's
but
got a
yeah.
great arm. I mean, he's got a great arm. That's one thing. Some of those third basemen don't have the arm. Like he's got a strong arm and it's accurate. And he also knows how to play the game, which is something obviously that we can't just assume anymore. So you have that possibility. Then you also have the possibility where if it's not Beatty, they could sort of look at, again, if they're moving on from Alonso, they could look at a replacement at first or at third with the mind that they could always put Vientos in the other position.
Mhm.
So from a franchise standpoint, it gives them a few options. Option one, re-sign Pete Alonso. Keep Vientos at third. Or if you think Vientos, I don't know, like is going to get unseated by Beatty, if you think Beatty's going to be a much better defender and he's going to hit enough, then, you try Vientos in some kind of outfield spot. And then you don't necessarily pursue hard an outfielder that's going to take up a lot of years in terms of contract. Like you would get maybe somebody, but not somebody that's gonna tie up a spot for a long amount of years.
I think they're going to try for that guy first. To be honest.
You don't know.
No, but you don't know if you're going to get him, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking Soto on that. Personally, I think the Yankees cannot, from a franchise perspective, let Soto go, particularly to the Mets. I think that's almost, and I know maybe the owners don't come in, whatever else like that. That's almost crazy talk, in my mind. Particularly like a young guy like that who's got a lot of tread left on there. Um, I think that's crazy. I mean, if the number's insane, the number's insane. But if it's unless it's truly insane, and insane being like even the Yankees can't match it, which is truly insane numbers. I can't see a scenario where Hal lets go.
Well, now you have the scenario where, Otani kind of just gave everybody the cheat code,
Yeah.
right? And the cheat code meaning like just defer the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they're deferring the money, the Yankees could go to 800 million if they wanted to, even though it doesn't make sense. First of all, it never makes sense to do things recklessly in an economic fashion, except for what the Dodgers did this year. But in the end, it was Yamamoto coming up big,
Yeah.
right?
It was funny. I was kind of looking back and I'm like, you know what? That truly is like you're talking like the unsung hero. I'm like, it really is that dude. Like,
Yeah.
he did it. Basically got him past the Mets, and put a
And the
big
Yankees,
stake
he
in him.
put
And
him,
I'm not saying him in Game 6. He was setting up to be. He could have been the deciding factor again in the World Series.
he pitched 2 games against the Yankees this year, and both were gems. And he put the Yankees into a funk that lasted through game 3.
Yeah.
He did.
Yep.
They did not get to him in the first inning the way they needed to, and that was that. They took 8 more innings and then 8 and 2/3 innings the next day off. And
Yep.
by the way, the worst thing that ever happened to the Yankees was Alex Verdugo hitting a 2-run homer down 4-0 because that kept him in. I don't care if Verdugo's not the problem, whatever. Like, listen, now I'm regressing. I sound like Francesa. I'm regressing. It always goes back to the Yankees. How you like I've defended Boone from a standpoint of this, that it's less his fault than Cashman's fault. Like, you equip him with whatever and you give him the marching orders and he follows the marching orders. And then when he goes outside the marching orders, everybody goes crazy. And when he stays inside the marching orders, everybody goes crazy. So which one is it? Like, it's got to be somewhere. It's got to be somewhere in the middle. But it has much more to do with the way that the team is composed. However, when you get down to the point where after May or whatever it was, sometime in May, somebody had a great stat. Among regular players from that time, which were people who had like 300 or more plate appearances, which is like going from May. I mean, there's guys who had like 500. He was literally the worst hitter in baseball. The worst. Like the worst. And you get down and you're down to your last out in the World Series and you still will not pinch hit for that guy? Like, how do you even get to the point where he's there? Like, the second that you're losing a game, get him out of the game. He's only in there because he's okay defensively. But like, Trent Grisham's good defensively too. Like, he could have just played there and done the same shit. And at least he has like a history in the playoffs of getting hot in a series and like going on home run binges. And we know he's a great defensive outfielder. So fine. Like why not him? Why not what happened to Jason Dominguez?
Yeah.
Like we can't get him in a bat? Like you it's too much pressure. He's a Major League Baseball player. Like I don't care what the pressure is. Get the bat, kid. Go in there.
Actually, you start Gill in the elimination game.
Yeah. Well, less
Don't
pressure
protect
down.
these guys too much.
Less pressure down 3-0, to be fair, I'd say.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, because nobody's ever come back from it. So there's no expectations. Once you're down 3-0, you're like, we're not winning the series. Like, we need a total miracle. And even like he could throw a perfect game, like it still only got us 1 game. The pressure to me was game 3.
Yeah.
Game 3 was a much bigger pressure because with each growing at bat, like every time they're putting a guy on, you're like, you can't let this guy score. You can't let this guy score, And the screws are just tightened and tightened and tightened. In game 3, it's like, screw it. We're just, I mean, game four, when you're down 3-0, it's like, screw it. We're just,
If I could pull the weave and bring it back to Alonso for a sec. So
yeah.
we're over here. We're coming back. We're coming back over on that. This is one again, like it's almost a little bit of the flip side on Soto. And by the way, if the Mets do want to find a way to get Soto, like whatever you have to do to make that happen, you make happen, right? So if Alonso has to be a casualty of that, then every Met fan, you have to do that. But that being said, I will put a little bit of the heart on it, and I will say the Mets basically don't have like foundational position players, right? Like that truly stand up against like other teams' foundational. I mean, we've had great guys for a while. David Wright was probably the one that was going to be the guy till the medical got there. Straw would have been, but he left. Beltran was great, but he was only with the Mets for a little bit. Piazza, the same sort of deal. Pete Alonso can be a 500 home run guy. Pete Alonso next year, if he has just a normal year for him, will be the all-time leader in Mets home runs with 5, 6, 7 years left to go on it, right? So just running away with that. I do see that, and he's come off a little bit, and believe me, the contract is not without risk, right? Because you could say, look, he's kind of peaked out. He's starting to roll over a little bit. Is that true? Is that not true? I don't know, right? I'm not in a position to tell that. It's certainly a risk. He pulled back a little bit this year in a walk year, which makes you a little nervous, right? With Boris, I'm sure, in his ear the whole time. But I do think that letting a guy who could potentially be your sort of first true foundational guy as a Met, as a position player, walk. And I'm going to guess it's not a huge, and you have the resources to do what you need to do. Right. So, I mean, it really would be a case of like, all right, I think we can do, and Vientos would be fine to kind of move into it. And they do have backup plans to kind of work around it and so forth. But I do think at some point, you need to stop doing that. And I think that's kind of old Met thinking. It's like, we can't have that. And you know what? Like when the Yankees get a great player, he doesn't leave. And that, I think, has always been a difference between the top teams and the not the top teams. And if you don't think he is, then that's fine. And you say he peaked 2 years ago, and he's had another couple of good years, and he's a fun dude and good guy to have around, but he's not the same sort of player, and we don't project him forward. Then okay, right? So, and they have much better technology and read, obviously, than any of us can do on that. But if you think he can still be a top 30 plus, occasionally 40 plus home run guy, decent average, right? So that's been a little disappointing letting that slide. Decent defense. That doesn't grow on trees in Metland. So I don't see why you let that, what? Let Brett Beatty be a great guy on the bench, right? And let him kind of hack his way through. Let them fight for the DH spots. Let them be a chip to get that that puts you over the top bullpen guy that we could have used this year, that we didn't, and we stitched it through here, there, wherever. But like, boy, if we just had that one extra closer sitting out there, some guys got hurt from him that they tried to pick up, but we got Stanek. If instead of Stanek, you got a true relief guy, maybe things are different. And that, again, if you're a great team, I think you have the resources, you don't let guys that you think are great players walk away. So that's my spiel for the polar bear.
The one sort of exception, I guess, came up a few years ago for the Yankees, which was Robinson Cano. And that was the case where for them, the money went too high. And not that the Yankees couldn't have paid it, because they could have paid it. But the player value for what you're going to pay is what becomes the issue. And to me, that's always an issue. Like that should always be an issue. That's why the Braves are so good every year. Even this past year when they had all those injuries, like they were still they were still in the playoffs, like in the end. Like they didn't, play like
And
the
they
Braves, but
they signed their Vientoses to like 12-year deals, right? Like that's
at,
a brave move. This offseason, the guy who signed is Vientos.
yeah, but
And that's how the Braves find a way to still compete as a mid-market team.
right, at essentially under, well under market value.
Yeah.
But
Overpaid early,
yeah,
but underpaid long term.
but
Underpay for the average value.
but there's other teams that have done that and it hasn't worked out.
Yep.
The Rays did that with Evan Longoria, and then he didn't turn out to be a Hall of Famer. He was a very good player, but like they definitely didn't need to sign him to that deal. They were hamstrung, uh, by that deal by the end. And
Yep.
look what they did. They did the same thing for Wander Franco.
Yeah.
And like
But again, that's what
that
makes
was they didn't like do their due diligence or something.
yeah.
Like I mean, or it was just completely out of the blue, but like everybody looks at the Rays and they're like, wow, they're this great organization and they do it right and they somehow get these guys out of nowhere, whatever. And like the two times that they've gone and tried to sign guys, but I mean, Longoria is not nearly as bad. Franco is egregious.
Brutal.
Like how do you like you don't know that this stuff is like potentially hanging over his head. Like he's in your locker room every day and like you don't know it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the guy was just uh, a good liar or something, or had a lot of people covering up his
But
tracks for him.
but again, the counter to that is when you're the big market team and you make a mistake, you can afford to make a mistake, right? That's
Right.
the problems. The Royals, the Pirates, the Rays, all those sort of teams, when they sign a guy young and then he sucks, they're done, right? When the Mets sign a guy and he sucks, they go in a year or two and pick up, the hot new free agent at third base instead. Same with the Yankees, same with the Dodgers.
Yeah,
They
they
they have that ability.
the Mets when the Mets do that, they trade guys to a team in the state of Texas, and just still have the second highest payroll in the league, and yet the fact that they finish second in the National League, and after a playoff run was a big upset because they have the second highest payroll in the majors,
Exactly.
higher than the Yankees,
There you go.
which is
Yeah.
crazy.
The funny thing is, I remember talking with Mrs. Dog, the cat, and I was like, it's funny. Like, I mean, it's 100% true on the payroll. But like, when you look at like the guys actually played for the Mets, and I'm like, you had like Lindor, and like that's kind of it. Like, all the rest of the guys are like young, cheap, whoever guys out there. I mean, Mania up there, and Diaz, obviously. But for most like the lineup who was actually out there producing and taking you on that run, like they actually didn't cost that much, right? And that's the same. That was sort of like the Stearns thing. I'm like, who they got there? I'm like, that could have been the Brewers, right?
Yeah.
That certainly could have been. It was not like a block team per se. It really was the echo shell of the block team that totally sucked last year, and it was sort of the guys out of the pile for this year that they put together and managed to find a way.
Look, a lot of things broke right for them,
Yeah.
amazingly. But the first couple of things that, like, I was just thinking about this before. Would they have been anywhere near where they were if they had Verlander and Scherzer in the rotation this year?
Nope.
Because they wouldn't have gone out and signed the other guys that they did.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Mania never shows up there.
Yep. Yep.
Quintana was there, right? He was
And
already there.
Thanos, he was hurt, right? So it's tough
Yeah.
to tell. So
So
he probably would have been okay. He probably wouldn't even done better, right? He would have been like the number 3 or 4. Maybe a
maybe.
little less pressure on him or something. But
I don't think he's ever really pitched as well as he did
and they
this.
didn't. And obviously, it's funny. People sort of talked a little bit like, the whole like vibe around the Mets this year. That doesn't happen with Scherzer and Verlander sitting there. Certainly not Scherzer. Verlander maybe just kind of went along with it. But like you wouldn't have had the same vibe. Like you basically had like, Lindor was sort of leading it and the younger guys kind of hopping in with the Iglesias and everything else like that. Like it really was sort of like a bottom up groundswell on that team. And like I said, it got a little bit of success and a little bit like, fun of social media and the songs and everything else like that. And they hit a home run with it. And like you said, a great point. If you have a bunch of like 35 to 37-year-olds, you know, is Max Scherzer going to sit there dancing around with the OMG and the chain on and everything? I don't know. I don't think so.
Actually, Max Scherzer probably would, as long as it's not his pitching day.
Uh,
Verlander probably not.
yeah. So, but it's the same. But it's just interesting. I like it. Who knows? You never know.
Scherzer would have taken the chain from the OMG sign and just started like beating people with it. Come on, bro, bro, bro.
Oh man. But
Yeah. So an interesting off-season
yeah,
look for the Mets also, speaking of that, is like they might need to just repeat this again and find a rotation
yeah,
again.
yeah. And that's gonna be the hard part, right? I mean, can lightning strike twice on that? I mean, I'm thinking Mania. Hopefully they re-sign him. I might think he fits well with the team, and that's an interesting one, right? Like, do you get drunk on power and just buy everybody, right? And that's kind of what bit him last year. That's not Stern's MO. It's certainly gonna be tempting, right? It's you're right there. If you take these next couple of big moves, you kind of get it. But the chemistry and everything else like that with the team, do you how do you how do you find a way to keep that, or is that critical to your success kind of going forward? And I think that's fascinating from an organizational behavior standpoint. I don't know, right? I mean, that the Mets traditionally are sort of that kind of team. Like they're more the have fun and we're thrilled to be here, et cetera, versus some other teams. Um, can you take that step if you're getting more guys and you're saying, all right, well, we're now this, and now we expect to be in the World Series next year, period, full stop. And can you get that same sort of vibe within it? And it clearly didn't work in 23, right? That was sort of the thought out of 22. They're a great team. Yep, we just ran into the Padres and we just need to take that next step. 198 games. We're adding, you got Verlander and Scherzer. Like, let's rock and roll. Diaz out, obviously took a big hit against it on that, but expectations were sky high and they didn't achieve. They sucked, right? So it will be interesting to see, can the Mets sort of defy their history of having a great year and then flopping back? I don't know. That will make for a fun off season.
We didn't get the Subway Series. We were close, but we didn't get it.
Mhm.
But it feels like the Subway Series could be in the off season for Soto and maybe for some other guys too. I mean, they don't really have the
Solo
same
Alonso, right?
needs.
That's gonna be they're big on compete for both those guys, and they feel the
Yeah,
same teams.
I don't know that Alonso fits with the Yankees because you already have Judge and you already have Stanton. You're so right-handed on guys that you can't move out of the middle. And they worked so hard to kind of like get out of that this year. And even when those guys really weren't very good, just the fact that they had left-handed bats in the middle, a lot of times allowed for at least teams to not pitch them so consistently tough in a playoff series like the way the Astros did, where it was like we just it's all these righties and we're just going to throw them the same thing and they can't do anything with it. Like this team was a little bit more difficult for that. We'll see. We talked about when the Otani thing was coming out, like we talked about San Francisco as being a place like they were in it for Judge. Remember they signed Carlos Correa, then they got out from underneath the deal because they didn't like the injury. Like you got to feel like they're going to be in it for Soto. They might even be in it for some of the Met free agents. Maybe Manaya's going to go back there. Who knows? Like, so I think San Francisco could be one of these teams that's a player. The Blue Jays have been trying to get into this mix here. Like, but Shohei Ohtani might be on a plane to Toronto right now, for all we know, Dawg. So we'll see who the free agent players are going to be, but there's definitely going to be a lot of interest between Juan Soto going to the Yankees or the Mets, as you figure those are the two front runners. Like, I don't know. Then I've heard people say, "Oh, what about the Dodgers too?" Like I just don't. I don't see that.
I mean, and anyone giant pockets is certainly capable. Um, but yeah, it does sort of feel like this is really like big boy time. That there's probably only 4 or 5 teams that are truly going to be competing for him. Um, Other teams, I don't see how in the world they could do it. And how could they do it and be in such a situation that he would actually want to go there? Right? That's
Right.
like
Right. You have to have both.
the Giants can find a way, but then who's going to be around them? Right? It's not going to be anybody. He's going to underachieve. Yes, he will maximize his money. I think he kind of digs the spotlight as well. So I mean, I think he kind of digs like being in playoffs, being in New York or being in LA or whatever else like that. I mean, that kind of feels like that's where he kind of would naturally should wind up.
Dog does not like Mike Yastrzemski.
I do like that. He's a great player.
Dog taking the leak on Mike Yastrzemski. Who else is there? Mike Yastrzemski's there.
Like Conforto. Free agent again. Bring him back.
All lefties. That's the Giants have all these lefty guys. So yeah, so the Subway Series is going to be between Hal Steinbrenner and Steve Cohen probably, but we'll see. Like I think that it would be
Does Cashman stick around, or is he allowed to stick around?
I mean,
Get right on
look
it.
at this point, like what you're going to all of a sudden fire him when he actually gets back. I'm not saying that I wouldn't. I think I look, it would be time to move on, like for sure. But like, are you gonna fire him now that he actually got back to the World Series? Like, and now you're gonna fire Boone when he actually got to the World Series? Like that would sort of seem like a dubious time to do that. Like, why wouldn't you? Like, there were so many other times when you could have fired him, like last year when they didn't make the playoffs. So now they not only do they make the playoffs, but also they make the World Series. And I mean, as crazy as it sounds, they still were only 3 wins away from another World Series title.
Yep.
And, you know, they had 2 of those wins in the bag. They, if they just did a couple of things right, like as they would have been expected to do, they would have been, we would have been, well, we probably wouldn't have done a show today, but they would, you know, we would have been getting ready for game 6 with the Yankees needing 1 win. Like, so you're going to knock that? I mean,
Does Cashman burn Boone and get his last extra chance? So you know what? I put the pieces in place. You're the jackass who's playing Verdugo.
oh, I think he had everything to do with him playing Verdugo. I don't understand how, like, I shouldn't say I don't understand because intellectually, I could see where you make that case where you're saying, okay, he's the ninth batter. He's, you know, defensive metrics in left field, whatever are good. You don't want to bring in Dominguez where he really hasn't played too much. And when Dominguez was playing left field, he was just completely out of place. When he plays center, he's actually like okay. And I don't know if we've seen him in right, but now if Dominguez is going to play center, then it kind of makes sense that you'd move Judge to right and then Soto to left. Now you've displaced like all 3 guys. So in one way, I could kind of understand that, right? In another way, like then put Trent Grisham out there. Like I mean, like just try like anybody else, you
Yeah.
know? Like do anything. I mean, the Yankees were two
A
for
corner
what
outfield, a corner outfielder should not be the worst hitter in baseball, particularly on a team that actually won the pennant.
100%.
That's that's almost impossible.
So one thing that they actually needed on this team was if you keep Soto, you have to get straight with what you're doing with Dominguez, Soto, and Judge in terms of their alignment, because those guys are going to be your regular 3, like it has to be.
Yeah.
And then the problem with the roster construction this year was they had Verdugo and they had Grisham, and both of those guys were lefties. And what they really needed was like they needed a right-handed hitting fifth outfielder who could just, like a lefty masher, like we used to talk about in Stratomatic in the
Yeah.
80s. Like give me a lefty masher, like some guy who just, and there are guys like that out there. Um, like the Mets did that. Like that was one of the reasons why the Mets roster construction was really good in terms of that stuff. Like you could they were very right-handed in the end, but that's the only reason was because even when McNeil got hurt, Jose Iglesias he was on such a roll that it kind of didn't matter that he was that extra right-handed bat. So every now and then you run into that. But like as great of a year as he had, like he's when he comes if whatever his contract is, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it was just like a 1 year deal, two-way deal, whatever he had. Um, he's not going to be the starting second baseman next year as good as he was. Like it's kind of just one of those things, right? Like you're like, why wouldn't you just bring him back and let him go? Because he's going to hit 237 next year and he's not going to walk. And his next song that's GMO instead of OMG is going to be about,
Genetically modified organisms.
yeah, like he's going to be taking aim at the big companies producing all this food, like and modifying our food, and it's just not, it's going to flop. Like even though it's important, it's like it's going to flop. But um, that's just the way that stuff works out. It's kind of interesting because the one guy that the Mets have that I always thought was such a good fit with the Yankees is McNeil, and I just wonder if finally like last season was the last straw over there. I know he signed. I know maybe they're not really like pushing him out the door, but it if the Yanks and Mets were going to make a deal, like the Yankees acquiring McNeil and then, deciding if they want to put him at second or third or Jazz at second or third would be probably like that would be a problem that the Yankees would really, really like to have. And then if they wanted a little flexibility at first base where they had a right-handed hitter, like I just don't see them going after Alonso. I mean, if the Mets signed Soto, then maybe, but the Yankees would still have to, have another outfielder. Like they'd have to get a left-handed hitting outfielder, even though like they just had a lot of them. But when you have a lot of them, sometimes you don't have enough. Um, because I cannot imagine Verdugo coming back, and I don't think Grisham's coming back. Dominguez is a switch hitter. Um, you could have a right-handed first baseman if you have lefties hitting or switch hitters at second and or third. And if, two of your outfielders are righties, are a lefty or a switch, then you could kind of afford that first baseman because you have the left-handed catcher. And I think they've really decided the Yankees that the balance is important. And Boone intimated that. Like I think he was taking that bullet constantly because I heard him in a lot of his pre and post game comments when they were talking about lineups, and he would say, "Oh yeah, I moved Jazz up to fourth because you guys know how much I love that lefty righty thing, whatever." Like he's taking the bullet, whether he likes it or not. That's what they were telling him. Because why the hell would you not have Giancarlo Stanton batting? I mean, you should have been batting him like third or first. The way.
Say.
Yeah, yeah. Could you imagine in all those spots where Gleyber Torres was coming up?
The lefty versus lefty when they're talking like Nestor versus like Freddie Freeman. Like Freddie Freeman, I don't know what span this. I mean, it was like the postseason or something like Freddie Freeman's like OPS is like 2,000 against a lefty. It's like, oh my God.
After the game, they were like, they go to Freddie Freeman. They're like, so what'd you think of the lefty Nestor Cortez coming into pitch? He's like, wait, he was a lefty? I'm not going to piss on, I'm not pissing on Nestor.
How about Fox make me feel awesome for Freddie Freeman? Like, God damn it. Like, I just went through this with Chipper. Like on there and like at that and like the mom and the kid and everybody else like that. I'm like, Jesus, I'm like rooting for Freddie Freeman at the end of this.
I know.
This guy's done nothing but torture me.
I know. It's like, yeah, Freddie
You know,
Freeman
he's obviously
is
a good dude. So it's kind
he's
of fun. Like occasionally you get that. Like you get past like the fan hatred and stuff like that. And
yeah, like there was a great sign.
They're actually good people.
The
So
great sign in Yankee Stadium that said, "Freddie, please stop." Like, yeah, like if you don't like me and my buddy Glenn were talking about this like the whole time, like oh God,
you don't want
like
to
of all the guys to kill us, it's got to be Freddie Freeman. Like we can't hate him. Like he's killing us, and we like feel good about it.
like Laura Albanese is like it's like Freddie Freeman is like, oh, there's a team in New York I have to go up and hit. Okay,
Yeah,
let me hop
don't
up and
mind
kill
if I
him.
don't mind if I do. Um, so yeah, we'll see what the Yanks decide to do. I mean, I guess a lot of people think, Rizzo's at the end of his Yankee tenure. I could totally see him signing on with like the Marlins, try to lead a young team down there. And if he discovers it and is healthy, like, and they want to flip him to a contender, like somebody would gladly take him for a stretch run, lefty bat, grinds it, likes to get, on base any way he can. Um, Look, he was very compromised by the time they got to the series. But he was decent against Cleveland. He just didn't really have it against the Dodgers. A couple of big at bats there where he just couldn't put the bat on the ball. And some, earlier in the series where he was able to at least get on. But you have Ben Rice. I mean, Christian Walker is kind of an interesting guy from Arizona, right-handed hitter, Gold Glove type. Um, can play every day if you want him to, or if you wanted to kind of mix in a platoon with, where you're giving Rice a shot and Rice is doing well, or if you want the extra lefty bat in there, if you need the lefty bat, you know, I think a lot of Yankee fans would not mind moving on from Gleyber Torres. Like it's you sort of like don't mind when he's doing well, but then there's just a lot of other stuff where you're like, I kind of like, I like the guy, like I think he's an all right guy, but
That's that
it's
chemistry one again, right?
yeah.
It kind of feels like it pops up, like where he's just a great player, but boy, he just does stuff that seems to like someone had a great line. What was it? Someone was using about another team, but like feel like they had a roster but not a team. No, I don't think I think that's unfair. I think the Yankees do have sort of a team. I mean, that's a little bit too hard on it, but feels a little bit like that. Like they just didn't seem to kind of get the gel.
The Jets have a roster but not a team.
Oh, that was who I didn't want to piss on the Jets, but yes, that's who I was thinking of.
Oh, we could piss on the Jets. Cav's not watching, and even if he was, we could piss on the Jets anyway.
That is true.
He deserves it for rooting for the friggin' Dodgers. F
Yes,
you, Cav.
so,
He was a guest on one of our biggest shows ever, by the way.
that is true. All right.
That's how we treat our guests. We surprise them with doing a show for the first time in 11 months on Halloween when the Jets are playing. And yeah, and then talking bad about them when they're not on with us. No, busting chops. Yeah,
We assault our audience.
yeah, we do. We assault our audience lovingly.
You're here, it's because you love us.
Oh boy, you really do. We got the like on Twitter from the Ball 9 crew tonight.
Nice. There we go.
Love
Very
Ball
cool.
9. Chris Vitale, did you see what he did? He was on Twitter from Chris Vitale from Ball 9. Was like a few nights ago. He's like, I have this feeling that maybe I should cash in my frequent flyer miles and jump on a plane and go to Game 5. And then like I've been like really busy at work, so not like following every single thing that's going on Twitter. And like the next thing I see is like he's there, like at the stadium. I'm like, wow, and it's like the fourth inning, and he's like, yeah, this has turned out to be like I was at John Wayne Airport in Orange County at 5 a.m. this morning. And, here I am now, and it's been, one of the best days ever. And then like that quickly turned. So I feel bad, but
You got to see an all-time game.
You did. I mean, look, you take,
A great one.
Gretzky said, you miss all the shots you don't take.
Yep. So,
And he was almost there for, he was there. It was historical either way.
true.
Because if the Yankees win, it's kind of an historical game, right?
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So,
There you
but whatever. Didn't happen.
go. All right.
All right.
Yeah,
Join the Facebook group. It's still
Yeah.
there. Facebook.com/group/Diamond Diehards. We also have a Facebook page. Join either, both, whatever. I know it's confusing sometimes. Just don't worry about it. Just do it. Follow the dog on Twitter at Jeff Healy 8. That's the number 8. And you can follow me, Joe Rizzo, at Diamond Diehards. I still call it Twitter, X, whatever. Call it whatever you want. Just
It's Twitter.
that's how to get us. The YouTube channel at Diamond Diehards. That's where we're doing this live. If you happen to be privy to that, possible but unlikely, but possible. The numbers have
A
been
lot of people are
there.
moving to that actually. I heard that's like the big thing now. They're moving from the pods to YouTube because it's easier to get the true subs and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we do. I mean, it is set up as a podcast on YouTube, so I got to see if it just went into the right place. We'll upload the fancified video of it too, in all the places. Oh boy, Dog. That was a good return show, I think.
Yeah, not too bad. Shaking a rust off a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
A little rusty at the beginning, me kicking my kicking my microphone.
That's
My
awesome.
headset. I kicked the headset out, which is like it's a headset mic if you can kind of see it. Sometimes it disappears with the background, but yeah, so once I kick that USB out, it's Katie bar the door, not
Oh,
daughter.
the dog's running solo.
Yeah. Speaking of the dog, the last time I was at the dog's house, the diamond dog was like, I thought she was gonna bite me. What was going on with the diamond dog?
No, she wanted some new content. The dog gets what the dog wants. So yeah, she's actually sat down next to me here. Well, she celebrates today as F them kids. So
Oh
all the
yeah.
kids going by on Halloween, so she's barking away. Bark, bark, bark. I
Yeah.
brought her outside. I'm like, oh, maybe she just always wants to go out and play with them and stuff like that. The kids are going out to get the candy. Brrr. Like,
Yeah.
in you go.
Keep the
Off to the pen.
keep her away from the chocolates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Well, if you're new, we might have people who are new to the show. Dog has a dog called the Diamond Dog. That's not her real name, but that's her stage name. See, we use our real names, but our dogs use stage names. The dog has a dog, and he's married to Cat, which is true. That is a true story. Dog's wife is Cat.
Engraved. It's on the ring. Dog and cat.
And Dog, Cat, and Debbie Rizzo, who has acted as producer or purveyor of the show at any given time. All Mets fans ganging up against me, the Yankee fan, and our sometimes producer Xavier Rizzo, Yankee fan. Dominic Rizzo, who composed the our version of the music. Met fan, and Luisa Rizzo, the other. Well, I don't know. Dare I call one of my kids the other triplet? The remaining unnamed one. Front runner, Yankee or Met, whichever she feels more compelled to that day.
There you
Yeah, the smartest one in the family.
go. Hedging the bets.
Yeah, she always gets it right.
Today.
Always in there, no matter what.
That's right.
Commit to the Mets, you don't make the World Series. Commit to neither, you're in. You made it. Wow, that was easy. Good job, Lou. All right, what else, Dog? Did we cover it all?
I think so. Are we on before Veterans Day, or are we're gonna take another little hiatus, or
I feel like maybe Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve? Okay, there we go.
Maybe Thanksgiving.
Maybe.
Black Friday.
Yeah.
When's the next Jet game?
Which means we could do election week. That'd be fun.
Oh yeah. We'll do an election special. How about that?
Oh boy.
Yeah, join us for our election special.
We'll finish off the rest of our audience. Hey, are you angry by listening to this 24/7? Tune into us.
Yeah.
So there we go. Get some guys on.
Special guest named Paul, maybe lined up for that one.
We got some beauties.
Yeah, I don't think so. Dog, a little culture, as I know you're dying to get out of here. A
Really?
little culture.
Actually, we're on YouTube. Can I refer to your big Rob Deere, the big buck shirt you got going on there?
That is, well, it is the Fairfield
That's
Stag,
the Stags. I know.
but it does look. But from there, it is Rob Deere, the big buck,
Big buck. So,
soon to be friend of the show at some point, maybe. Um, a little culture. I went to the Paper Mill Playhouse in Millbrook,
right in my neck of the woods.
New Jersey, last week, and finally saw Jersey Boys. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I have culture. I am not your tried and true. You know, I enjoy a musical about as much as I enjoy a tetanus shot.
Gotta enjoy that one though.
I loved it from the opening second to the final curtain. It was awesome, and that wasn't even like the Broadway version, but those guys were and gals were.
Paper just puts on good stuff.
Yeah, they were the bee's knees, dog. They were the bee's knees.
And
Jerry,
halfway.
Jerry Milani will appreciate that.
And got her start there.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but actually, I took Kat to see it on Broadway. That was one of her birthday or anniversary gifts. I forget now. So, but yeah, that was an awesome time.
Yeah, that was like sort of like a Debbie Rizzo birthday gift.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go.
There you go.
You'll have to inform me what else you took Kat to see for her birthday, and then I'll have some stuff for Debbie Rizzo.
There you go. Good deal.
Yeah, so it was good. I showed a little culture. I enjoyed it, and now I'm bragging about it publicly. What do you think about that?
There you go. Sounds good.
You can only get this here.
There you go.
Here on YouTube. Diamond Diehards on YouTube. Subscribe. Boy, I know you can't wait for us to just get to X amount of subscribers where people can start sending us money. I know who would be the first to send us money. It would be Uncle Paul. So we're going to end it by saying another quick get well to Uncle Paul. We're thinking about you. We're thinking about you during all these big games, and hope to have you back up and trucking again soon. That is going to do it for the Dog. Jeff Healy. This is Joe Rizzo. Diamond Diehards is out.